Sean here with another optimizing video. This time I'm going to be doing a video based on requests that I get from time to time from mostly my female followers about the difference between men and women. And oftentimes it's preceded by comment, we know you only do men, or you have mostly men of examples. I do female examples, but it's mostly men. It's because most of my clients are guys coming forward because I attract people that are alphas, and they're high performers, and so they're, for whatever reason, I'll get as many females to step. Maybe it's me, I don't know. But if you're a female out there and you're a high performer and you have that alpha female kind of personality, and you want to optimize to be the best biological version of yourself, contact me through my website so I can study you and consider bringing you on as a client and be able to share the insights we learn, studying and working with you, with everybody else, okay? So today's video, we're gonna look at the differences in fat between men and women. And there's some very profound differences that you need to be aware of. They're interesting. Stay tuned for this whole video, because if you're a guy, you'll learn from this too, because I touch on both, okay? So this one is for both guys and girls to pay attention and learn from. So we're gonna look at a particular type of fat. Two types: subcutaneous, visceral fat. There's a lot of other fat that we could talk about, and that might be a subject of another video. But today's video is male-female differences in sex. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right. So you need to know the difference between subcutaneous fat and visceral fat. Okay. And we're going to start on where it's located. Okay. So you need to know, because it's going to change the physiology and change the appearance of people based on where it is located. Okay, so subcutaneous fat, first of all, when we do an MRI, we're going to be doing an axial cut through, it's like a slice through the atom in this direction, okay? And the produced image that results from that is this image right here, okay? So fat on an MRI shows up as white. On a CT scan, it shows up as black. So wherever you see white, there's fat, okay? Now, subcutaneous fat, sub, below, like a submarine, cutaneous, the cutaneous structures is skin. So just below the skin is subcutaneous fat, subcutaneous adiposity or adipose tissue. So that subcu fat is right underneath the skin before you hit the muscles. And we paint it yellow here, okay, just to differentiate it between visceral fat. So the visceral fat in the middle, surrounding the viscera or organs, we paint it red. Red because it's warning. It's the bad stuff. It's highly inflammatory. It's deadly. It's disease-causing. You don't want it. So we paint it red in this image here, and the subcutaneous fat is just kind of cautionary. You don't want too much of it, and actually cautionary because you want some of it, and you definitely don't want to lose it all. So subcutaneous fat has a beneficial role. Visceral fat does not. Visceral fat is highly inflammatory, 24 hours a day, pumping out inflammatory molecules, and is problematic. So we'll get into that, and you'll see some interesting scans and some interesting photographs about visceral fat and subcutaneous fat. All right, so let's look at MRIs between a man and a woman, okay? So the one on top here is a woman, okay? And the one on the bottom is a man, okay? So the woman is premenopausal, okay? That means menopause is not set in. They're still female. They're still reproductively active. They can still have pregnancies, and they have not hit menopause. Okay, they're still having periods and menstruation. And one of the unique beneficial attributes of the female reproductive cycle appears to influence the amount of visceral fat humans get. In particular, of course, female reproductive cycle is limited to women, so the visceral fat in a woman who's premenopause is dramatically, significantly lower than in a male of the same contemporary age. So women have much less visceral fat and a lot more subcutaneous fat. Okay, this guy, just the opposite. All right, a huge amount of visceral fat and very little subcutaneous fat. Okay, so they're thin on the outside and fat on the inside. So we call that a TOFI. Thin on the outside, fat on the inside. I've shared it before, but it's worth paying attention to because TOFIs are more at risk for disease and bad outcome. You do not want to be a TOFI. Now, unfortunately, most of my clients who come to me are TOFIs, unfortunately for them. So you don't want to be one because you tend to suffer from more disease. But it's also a great experience to come and find that you have that, because I'm an expert at getting rid of visceral. Not only an expert, I think I don't know anybody else better at it, all humility aside, because it's my passion. It's what I do. I talk about it. I can't even get anybody else to talk about it, much less do anything about it. If you're doing something about it, let me know, because let's team forces, because I want to push this out with other people. So all this visceral fat usually is in men and not in women. Okay. Now, women have a lot of subcutaneous fat, so that changes their appearance. They get, extra deposition of fat on their thighs, kind of, female shaped, nice, fertile looking legs, and a nice female backside, bottom. And so, that song, I cannot tell a lie, I like big butts. Well, biologically, it's advantageous. It's very kind of connected with fertility, and has an attractive aspect. Not too much. You don't want to have it, be morbidly obese with subcutaneous fat. You can have too much, but if you have a modest to moderate amount of subcutaneous fat, it actually confers a protective benefit to you. So if she did not have that healthy subcutaneous layer there, and she just had that visceral fat, she would be a TOFI, and then she'd be more at risk for an adverse outcome, higher mortality. So let's take a look at a couple other examples of really good abdomen with very little visceral fat. This is a friend of mine, Gabe. Very little visceral fat. Gabe has very little subcutaneous fat, and Gabe has big muscles. So his visceral fat has not degraded his muscles, and he's got that nice oval shape. He's got a six-pack, and he's standing tall and looking good. Now, my other friend here is filled with visceral fat, and he also has a pretty large amount of subcutaneous fat as well. And he has sarcopenia, very small muscles. So his muscles are very small compared to Gabe's big, large, healthy muscles. So sarcopenia is one of those influences that we can see on an MRI scan, a lot with a lot of other disease. So let's go back to that female look. And again, just dedicate this one view. The defining feature of a female premenopausal was lower visceral fat and higher amounts of subcutaneous fat. So they're kind of like fat outside, thin inside. So they're kind of FOTI, fat outside, thin inside. She's got a little bit more. She's got more visceral fat than I'd like her to have, but she still is a pretty good example of a female. Well, let's look at a TOFI female who's premenopausal. Okay, I'm an ER physician who saw heart attacks all the time in the ER. But one of the things we did not see is heart attacks in young women, premenopausal. Guys, we saw heart attacks in their 20s, because you start putting on visceral fat, when you're a child. It's the first expression of disease. Did you ever wonder what is the first expression of disease in a child? It's visceral fat, and nobody talks about it. But when I scan my kids, including my 4-year-old, visceral fat was present in him already. So it's starting to accumulate, because I fed that poor boy too many waffles and pancakes and ice cream and sodas and all the crap that I didn't know anything about was really bad at that time. He doesn't get too much of that anymore today, I can tell you, unless he's sneaking it. If he's watching this video, he's sneaking it. So, all right, so this client of mine was filled with visceral fat. And this visceral fat is very unusual for somebody who's premenopausal. She was only 46. She hadn't gone through menopause yet. But 3 weeks before she came to see me, she had a heart attack. So that precipitated like this health crisis. And she said, I'm going to do something about it. She found out about me, and flew across the country to get her consultation to be examined. And sure enough, she was filled with this visceral fat, and she is thin on the outside. So a TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. Now, the sad thing about this particular client was she had a CT scan of her abdomen 2 years before she had a heart attack, and nobody read it. It was completely ignored. And this is a shame. So, I want you to speak up. If you're a follower, you need to go after these doctors and start demanding that they report visceral fat, because out of ignorance, they're not trained in it. And radiologists, end up knowing that that's fat inside, but they don't report it. They don't know how bad it is. You can talk to them, they're like this. I had one of them on Twitter arguing with me that we don't have to report it. It's like, oh my God, boy, people falling over dead, from heart attacks and strokes and suffering arthritis and bursitis. And this arrogant doctor didn't want to report it. Yeah. So anyway, speak out against it. Get your doctor to read it. You'll know more about it from watching Dr. Sean videos than they will. Visceral fat. Okay. Google it if you're brand new and just follow me. All right. So this particular client, is now working to reduce their visceral fat. We got them on track. Well, sometimes that visceral fat is really bad. A really bad TOFI is very thin outside and really fat inside. This is another client that came to me. He thought he was really good. It's a guy. He kept pinching himself because, when you pinch this, he's just got about an inch. So he thought he was good, just got about an inch, pinch an inch. So he thought it was good until I showed him examples of, good MRIs. Like I showed him my Olympic sprinter. I showed him my friend Gabe's abdomen, my abdomen, and then I showed him bad examples. So when we opened up his, he knew what was good and what was bad, and he got super upset and he passed out. Literally, he was standing up and passed out and hit the floor. And I thought he had a heart attack, and then I thought I was going to have a heart attack because he was having a heart attack and I didn't have anything to take care of him. It was an awful scene, but we got him educated. Now he's getting rid of his visceral fat. And let's look at one of the interesting effects of visceral fat and subcutaneous fat. Okay, so subcutaneous fat actually can convert to estrogen, and it can cause estrogenation of your face. So here's an example of a pretty face. Now, in males, they get a lot of subcutaneous fat. They get very baby faces, kind of female babyish looking faces from that extra fat caused them to have less of a masculine looking face. And then when they go carnivore, they get that carnivore look to them. Okay, get that nice lean, look to their face, much more masculine because they get rid of that fat. Okay, so here's an example of pretty face, nice, feminine looking face. Is this young lady made to the cover of Sports Illustrated, and it's an interesting cover because I remember when this came out. So let's look at it a little bit more. Look at her figure. Oh my, yeah, she's a big girl, So she has a lot of subcutaneous fat, but I can guarantee, Dr. Sean, that she does not have a lot of visceral fat because her face is still attractive. Visceral fat makes you ugly and inflamed. If you got a boyfriend in his 30s and he's got an inflamed looking face, it's because he is accumulating visceral fat. And guys in their 20s do this too. And if you're in your 40s and 30s and you're premenopausal and you've got an inflamed looking face and you don't have your pretty little face that you had that was cute and lean when you were 16, you could be somebody who's also accumulating visceral fat. Unusual for premenopausal women, but it can happen like it did with my one client. So this extra subcutaneous fat is not as destructive. And you get all these people debating, fat at any weight. I don't agree with that, fat at any weight. But people said this woman is not healthy. And Dr. Sean will say, she's healthy. Now I'd want a scan to prove it, but I can look at her face. I can see inflammation on people's faces. And I can also tell by the looks of their bodies and stuff. So she's not going to have a lot of subcutaneous fat. Well, let's look at somebody who's more famous, Sinead O'Connor. Okay, this was her kind of in her prime heydays when she was young. Okay, she had just very little subcutaneous fat and very little visceral fat and probably more subcutaneous fat. So she had this very nice, pretty face. Well, look what's happened to her since. This is menopause, and this is visceral fat accumulation. And it's, a combination. Might be stress and other things too. Alcohol can play a role. Now, I have no idea if Sinead drinks or anything like that, but there are other factors besides just carbohydrates. And so, and cheating and things, poor sleep and a lot of factors can cause visceral fat formation. But the one I want to talk about is menopause. All right, so you young ladies, pay attention here. Pay attention. Go get your relatives, your female relatives, their pictures when you're young girls and their pictures after they hit menopause. And you will see their faces become unattractive. This is kind of a profound change. But if you don't want that to happen to you, you better start following me on YouTube and doing my strategies. And if you're like you're a model or you're running companies and you're an influencer, come see me, be a client so you can fight having visceral fat. You can do my strategies. It's not nearly as effective as coming working with Dr. Sean, because I will attack that, declare war on that visceral fat. We're going to get rid of it and keep it from ever coming back. So the influence of menopause has a dramatic influence on the amount of visceral fat that you have inside. So let's look at it in my own face. Okay, here's an example of me filled with visceral fat. And here I am, I'm age 48 here, and then I'm age 59 without my visceral fat, okay? I actually weigh more here than I did here, okay? Way more here today. So I'm about 177 to about 179 pounds. And before here, I was just 165. But that visceral fat, look what it did to my face, okay? It made me very inflamed looking. This crap destroys your appearance, destroys your performance, and destroys your health. So you do not want that stuff in there. So young ladies and old ladies, I don't want to say old ladies, older ladies, you want to get rid of your visceral fat. So here are my strategies. You can screen shoot them and take a look at that. And you can also find on my Instagram account. So my Instagram has all my strategies pinned to it. And I've done lots of videos on how to get rid of visceral fat. And if you're really interested in working with me again, I'd like to study very motivated people who are influencers and want to be the best biological version of themselves. You can try my strategies and they're awesome and people change their life doing them. But I am the coach to work with you and optimize if you really want to do it fast and get rid of it in a hurry. All right, well, as always, I hope if you like this video that you give it a like. Okay, the more likes I get, the more I can spread this out to other people and have them be aware of this and change their lives and hopefully save their lives. And hit the subscribe button so you can subscribe to me. Hit the alert button so you can get my videos when they come out and be aware of it. And I'll do the best. I'm getting more popular. Dr. Sean's getting more. I'm having a hard time keeping up with these comments. Everybody's putting comments in there, but I'm going to try to do it. They're awesome. And asking questions. So if you've enjoyed this video, give it a like and share it with other people that you know. If you got somebody, a daughter who's going to be going through menopause, share it with them. If you got somebody who went through menopause and you look at their pictures and they were very pretty or young, time to get it back. If they don't think they can get it back, look at Dr. Sean. I got mine back, and I do it with my clients. Okay, I get their faces much more. I get the expression, get in shape. The biggest thing that happens when you get rid of visceral fat is you get in shape all over your body to include the shape of your face, okay? So you lose this inflamed, big, round face, and you get this, leaner cut, this carnivore kind of a look, or a very good keto look, and that's from that reduction of visceral fat. All right, so share this video with other people, and we'll see you next time on another health optimizing video. Dr. Sean out.